Welcome to Tibet This Week, where we bring you weekly news edition on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Tibet, and the Central Tibetan Administration. These are the headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama safely returns to Dharamsala. Choegyal Tulku passes away after years of imprisonment in Chinese prison. Central Tibetan Administration commemorates the 65th Tibetan Democracy Day. 5-day Tibet-Himalaya Relations Conference begins. Sikyong concludes his official engagements in Dharamsala. Tibetan settlements in Kullu continuously affected by heavy downpour. Tibet Lobby Day in Australia urged, let His Holiness the Dalai Lama choose his own reincarnation, not China. Core Group for Tibetan Cause calls for renewed awareness on Tibet among young Indians. Weekly Lookout, celebration of the Year of Compassion. On Tuesday this week, His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama safely returned to Dharamsala to a warm welcome from Tibetans, devotees and well-wishers following a month-and-a-half-long stay in Ladakh. Over the course of His Holiness's extended visit to Ladakh, His Holiness also travelled to Zanskar, where he inaugurated the Kargyum Mega Summer Symposium and laid the foundation stone for the Zanskar Melam Chöte. He delivered teachings to an audience of over 21,000 devotees, laid the foundation stone of the new Choegyal temple, consecrated the Dharma Center at Choklamsar, and addressed approximately 50,000 followers during two major public teachings on 16th and 17th August at Choegyal, an event that also featured long-life prayers in His Holiness's honor. His Holiness's final public appearance in Ladakh was at a luncheon hosted on 24th August at Apispang's Pituk. Choegyal Tulku passes away after serving many years in Chinese prison. According to reliable sources, Tulku Pandey Wange, the head Lama of Choegyal monasteries in Potu, Khartab, Nyakle and Shungur villages of Khoncho in Tibet, passed away in prison at the age of 53 after prolonged detention. Initially held in Khoncho County Prison by the Chinese authorities, Tulku Pandey Wange was later transferred to Chamdo and Lhasa. Despite multiple appeals for his release, the Chinese authorities refused to respond and imposed strict prohibitions on any contact with him. In 2025, he was forcibly moved to Gansu province, where he continued to face unrelenting torture. On 19th July, he died in custody. His death has brought profound grief to all associated monasteries. Tulku Pandey Wange was known as an individual deeply committed to the welfare of the local Tibetan community. His respected position and teachings, however, raised suspicion within Chinese authorities. As a result, he was forcibly arrested and imprisoned for approximately 7 to 8 years. The Central Tibetan Administration and the Tibetan community celebrated the 65th anniversary of the Tibetan Democracy Day on Tuesday this week at Tuglakhang. Sikyong Pembasring and Speaker Khembusnam Tempe delivered statements of the 16th Kashak and the Tibetan Parliament in exile, respectively, touching upon the history, significance and the contributions of His Holiness in the development of this day. The distinguished guests, Member of Parliament Alfred Gangnam Arthur from Manipur, Member of Parliament Wada Yuichiro from Japan, and Christina Johnson, Chair of the International Coordination Council of all International Campaign for Tibet offices, welcomed the decision of His Holiness on the matter of reincarnation and showed support in his efforts in making this world a better place.
The life that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has lived, live that life across the world wherever you are. Be free, be courageous. Understand that his core has been inclusiveness. He has never said that he would segregate the Chinese, he would segregate the rest of the world and make an inclusive or exclusive world just for Tibetans. He has said the world is for all to live. Today, on this celebration of this 65th Democracy Day for the Tibetans, and so also the 98th birthday year of Our Holiness the Dalai Lama, which has been declared a year of compassion, I wish to contribute by saying that whichever way we are and wherever we are today, we need to live up to the expectations of Our Holiness the Dalai Lama. And the day we all understand that what he has been trying to say to us and teach us by all of what he has lived today, the day we start actually living how he has lived, I am sure that day would not be very far when we would see a free, a resurgent, and a strong Tibet.
祝福され続けますように。
Choegyal in Tibetan means victory to Tibet. So here I say Choegyal once again. And Tibetans have the right to live as Tibetans. Language and religion are life of the people and treasure of humanity. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama live a long and healthy life and Tibet continue to be a blessed.
Democracy is not easy. It requires patience, courage, and humility. Mistakes will be made. That is part of the journey. But His Holiness has given you a framework that is both deeply Tibetan and universally human, a democracy rooted in compassion.
The Tibetan community across the globe marked the day with gatherings held both in person and online. The 5-day Tibet-Himalaya Relations Conference commenced this week at the Sikyong Hall in Kangchen-Kishong. Jointly organized by the Tibet Policy Institute, the Dalai Lama Institution for Higher Education, the College for Higher Tibetan Studies, and the Mulam Charitable Trust, the conference saw participation from a diverse group, including royal lineages from across the Himalayan countries and communities, scholars, and around 30 students from different Himalayan regions. Keynote addresses were shared by Sikyong Pemba String and Speaker Khyentse Nam Tempe, emphasizing the historical, cultural, and commercial relationship between the Himalayan state and Tibet, and their insights on the aims and significance of the conference. Sikyong Pemba String concluded his official engagements in Dharamsala with a visit to the Sara College for Higher Tibetan Studies and the Tibetan residents of Dharamsala. He gave keynote addresses on both the occasions, where he focused on Tibet's historical independence, middle way approach, and some key accomplishments of the departments of the Central Tibetan Administration under the 16th Kashak. Before this, Sikyong visited Nyingdobling Society, Chonang Monastery, Lundupchime Gazeling Monastery, Domaling Nunnery and Institute, Norling Creche and Kindergarten, the Nobelinga Institute, and SOS Tibetan Children's Village at Gopalpur. Torrential rains in Himachal Pradesh have caused cloudburst, destruction of property, and flooding of highways and roads in Kullu and Manali. 3 of the 6 Tibetan settlements under the Kullu Pelrabling Settlement Office's jurisdiction, namely Manali Digiling, Thobi Pelrabling, and Kullu Yulukyu, were affected. Due to the downpour, mudslides and debris flooded several Tibetan households and damaged property. Following a red alert, the settlement office contacted the District Disaster Management Authority, which directed the relocation of the public to safer locations. The Home Department CTA has allocated 4 lakhs in emergency relief funds to the Kullu Tibetan Settlement Office to address the immediate needs of the affected public and carry out relief measures. As part of this year's Tibet Lobby Day, the Australia's Tibet Council, along with 15 young Tibetans from different regions of Australia, met around 30 members of the Australian Parliament across all political parties to make their voices heard on the various issues concerning Tibet and Tibetan people. The delegates also voiced their concern about the Chinese government's efforts to systematically erase Tibetan identity, language, and culture, and cases of transnational repression of the Tibetans in Australia. They met with Suzanne Templement, Member of Parliament, Senator Dean Smith, Senator Steph Hoggins-May, and Senator Nick McKeam, and they voiced their concern on the matter and showed support for the Tibetan cause and its people.
Tibetan children are separated from their families and placed in boarding schools, where their language and identity are stripped away with terrible consequences. These are not distant problems or something we can dismiss as internal matters. They are challenges to the core principles that underpin free societies. The right to live in dignity, the right to speak one's language, the right to practice one's faith, the right to chart one's own course, these are universal. Australia is fortunate to be a democracy and to respect human rights. We enjoy freedoms of speech, belief and association that Tibetans today are denied. But those freedoms we experience here in Australia come with responsibilities, because we cannot believe in democracy and sovereignty for ourselves and be indifferent when those same principles are threatened or denied abroad. That's why Tibetan Lobby Day matters. It is not a symbolic exercise, it is a reminder that our Parliament can and should use its voice on issues such as this, and to do so in a bipartisan and even tripartisan manner, which is why I joined colleagues from across the Senate this morning at a media conference to launch and to draw attention to my colleagues of Tibetan Lobby Day today and tomorrow.
We have to be clear. Any Dalai Lama appointed by the Chinese government has no legitimacy, and any Chinese government interference in the choice of the new Dalai Lama is unacceptable. Australia cannot stay silent on these issues. Silence risks being interpreted as acquiescence to authoritarianism. As a democracy with strong commitments to human rights and to a fair, rules-based international order, we have a responsibility to act. That means declaring that Tibet's status remains unresolved and supporting the Tibetan people's right to self-determination. It means encouraging genuine dialogue between China and the Tibetan leadership, and it means funding cultural preservation and advocacy, particularly in exile communities who are working to keep their traditions alive. A principled stand from Australia would bring us into line with many in the international community, including the United States, and with international law.
Core Group for Tibetan Cause India held a press conference in Dharamsala calling for strengthened awareness on the importance of a free Tibet for India's security among young Indians. R.K. Crime, President of the Core Group of Tibet All India, chaired the press conference, accompanied by Sri Rishi Walia, Regional Convener, North Region. R.K. Crime reflected on the first Tibet Convention being held at Kolkata in 1959 under the guidance of Loknath Jai Prakash Narayan, where different political parties of India came together to support Tibet's independence. The core group reaffirmed its unwavering support for His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, particularly in light of His Holiness's recent remarks regarding the continuation of the institution of Dalai Lama. As part of the Year of Compassion celebration, a delegation of 5 monks from Debungloseling Monastery, India, accompanied by Representative Jigme Tsering and Pupu Tsering from the Office of Tibet, Latin America, conducted a cultural and spiritual tour across Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica and Mexico. Tibetan community in Switzerland and Liechtenstein held a series of events celebrating the 90th birthday of His Holiness. In Belgium, the Regional Condemnation Organizing Committee of Belgium launched a year-long initiative to provide free symbolic meals for 50 people every month from August 2025 to July 2026 in celebration of the Year of Compassion. That is all for this week's edition of Tibet This Week. See you in the next one.